The Golden State Warriors have opened the Western Conference Finals with a 1-0 series lead after they defeated the San Antonio Spurs 113-111 Sunday evening in the opening game. The Spurs held a 25-point lead at one time against the Warriors, but after Kawhi Leonard suffered two ankle injuries early in the third quarter and one that kept him out for the remainder of the game, the Warriors were able to make a comeback in the second half to make it a close game between both sides, but in the end, Golden State made more plays than San Antonio without Kawhi, and so Golden State opens up the series with the 1-0 lead. I am Paul Garcia of ProjectSpurs.com. Please be sure to follow us at Project Spurs and my Twitter handle as well. Let's go ahead and break down what happened in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals between the Spurs and the Warriors. So first, let's discuss Kawhi before he got injured. He ends up finishing with 26 points on 13 shots in 24 minutes, shoots 54% from the floor. He went 11 of 11 from the free throw line. He also dished 3 assists. Taking the extra days off in the series against Houston really helped Kawhi. He looked pretty active in those first 3 quarters before getting hurt again. He did a good job, especially of attacking Golden State in the second quarter. At halftime, he had already had 18 points. Because Andre Iguodala wasn't 100%, he was suffering something as well. The coaching staff of Golden State decided not to play him much in that second half, and so he only played 10 minutes in the game. And so Kawhi, as soon as he saw Matt Barnes get on him defensively, he was going right at Barnes. He put up 14 points in the second quarter. However, it was in that third quarter. The Spurs were still leading by 20 plus. He first rolled his ankle. He had made a shot, and as he was walking back, he kind of tripped over one of his teammates on the bench. But he was able to stay in the game. But then it was that second call with 7:53 left in the third quarter, where he takes the jumper, gets fouled by Zaza Pachulia, who sticks out his foot. It was very controversial because, as a lot of NBA fans know, and players and former players, it's just something you just don't do in basketball. Is put your foot out whenever a guy's taking a jump shot, because there's a good chance of him landing on your foot and you falling on it and rolling your ankle. And so that exactly happened to Kawhi. Zaza's foot went underneath him. A lot of fans were obviously very angry. After the game, Kawhi was asked about it. He felt that Zaza didn't do it maliciously. Zaza as well claimed that he didn't do it on purpose. So over the next few days, that'll probably be the big argument, is over whether or not there should be more penalty towards Zaza, because that obviously is a play that happens in basketball a lot, but you don't want to see it happen because it's just something it's almost like an unwritten rule. You just don't do as a defender. After Kawhi went out, that's when the game basically turned around. The Warriors outscored the Spurs 58-33, which I'll talk about a little bit more. Kawhi spoke with the media after the game. He didn't have any kind of medical wear, according to two of the reporters, Jabari Young of the San Antonio Express News and Michael Wright of ESPN.com. Jabari reported that Kawhi did have a limp when walking. Mike Wright did report that he did not have a limp. The Mark Spears of ESPN reported that Kawhi will have an MRI Sunday evening to see how long he'll be out. Best case scenario is the Spurs are probably going to think long term here, so it's probably a safe bet that they will keep him out of Game 2, because there's obviously still 3 more guaranteed games for them, at least in the series. So whether they win or lose Game 2, I don't know if he's going to play if he's not 100% or at least close to 90%. And the benefit of that would give him 5 days off. He'd have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off before Game 3 tips off in San Antonio on Saturday for him to get rested. So we'll see what the MRI reveals and how long Kawhi will be out. Moving on to the Spurs' second playmaker is LaMarcus Aldridge. He finishes with 28 points on 24 shots. Shoots a little bit below 50%. He also dishes 3 assists, collects 8 rebounds, gets 3 steals, a block, and he plays 40 minutes in the ballgame. So Aldridge, the numbers look good for him, 28 points. It's about when they came, when you really have to look at it. He was rolling in that first half. With him and Kawhi, they were a great 1-2 punch against Golden State by bringing the Spurs' lead up to 25. Aldridge actually had 17 points by halftime. He did a really good job of targeting Kevin Durant at the low post, wearing him down. He also got a few high-low baskets over Draymond Green and any kind of mismatches. He was a really good offensive threat for San Antonio. However, when the Spurs really needed him most, which was when Kawhi went out early in the third quarter, he had a tough time. Obviously, he's a focal point of the offense. The Warriors sent more double teams at him, and when he did get single coverage, he didn't get the best shot looks. So after Kawhi left, Aldridge shoots 3 of 11 from the floor. He only got to the free throw line 3 times. He hit those 2 free throws. He scored just 8 points. He had 5 turnovers, grabbed 4 rebounds in 16 minutes. So obviously, it's a little bit easier for Golden State to start swarming him more. And you saw that where he would kind of read the double team way too late and make some bad passes. And they'd intercept that and take it on the other end for some points. And when he did get that isolation coverage, he wasn't able to get good post position right near the paint. He was about 15 feet out, and he'd obviously try to take his turnaround jumpers. He says that after the game, there was a quote where he said that he usually takes those shots and they go in. This is the night where they just didn't go in. But obviously they need to do what they did against Houston. Now that if Kawhi plays or not, is try to make Aldridge get going early again and try to keep him that way for the full 4 quarters rather than just one half of basketball, because they're going to need him, especially if Kawhi doesn't play in Game 2. To continue to attack Draymond Green if he gets Kevin Durant, Zaza Pachulia, etc., some of those Warriors defenders. So they're going to need Aldridge to step up in Game 2, San Antonio. John Simmons finishes with 12 points on 9 shots, shoots 44% from the floor, goes 2 of 2 from the free throw line, shoots 2 of 3 from three-point land, and plays 26 minutes. So Simmons had 5 points in the first quarter. He was just pretty active as far as getting going, making sure to beat somebody off the dribble. He got a 3-pointer. But then when Kawhi went out, him too, you would expect Simmons to take a little bit more responsibility on the offensive end to kind of create, because he has that pick and roll ability. He can get to the free throw line. He can finish at the rim. He can also kick out to teammates. But he really didn't have the opportunities. He only shot 1 of 4 when Kawhi went out. Finishes with 4 points, all scored in the fourth quarter. So that was big that it did at least help San Antonio in crunch time. He plays 15 minutes after Kawhi went out, and he only collected 1 assist. One thing I am eager to see to do is if whether or not the Spurs, they really didn't do this a lot in Game 1, was whether or not if they run more pick and roll action through him, let him be the ball handler, let him try to create a little bit more rather than just waiting as a option on the outside for him to collect the ball and then try to drive in or shoot a 3. So I think that you'll see San Antonio get Simmons a little bit more responsibility in Game 2, especially if Kawhi is out of that ball game. Offensively, the Spurs shot 48% from the floor. It's a good night. Again, that data is kind of skewed because of how their first half began with Kawhi. After Kawhi left the game, they only shot 37% from the floor. San Antonio made 7 of 22 threes on the night, 32%. That's below league average. When Kawhi left the game, they were 0 of 7. There was actually a 3-point shot late in the game when the game was close and the Spurs still had a chance to tie or take the lead, that LaMarcus got a semi-contested open 3 in the corner, and he missed it a little bit off the rim. Draymond Green contested it pretty well. So that was one where they really needed in crunch time a 3-pointer that could have saved the game for them, and Aldridge couldn't come through on that late 3-point make. Spurs shot 24-28 from the free throw line, 86%. Passing-wise, they finished with 19 assists on 40 makes, so they only assisted on 40% of their made field goals. Again, these are not the Houston Rockets defensively. These are the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors were the second best defense in the NBA, and they were the best defense in the playoffs. You saw that as soon as Kawhi went out there, they picked up their intensity. They're swarming. They're not making the easiest passes. They're not letting those happen, whether it's into the post or next to the next guy, left or right, on the side of them. They're constantly active. They send random double teams at different areas of the floor. They like to gamble a little bit more. They're just very solid defensively, and they can amp up that pressure. That's something that Houston just couldn't do, because Houston was an 18th ranked defense throughout the season. That's just not their game plan. The Warriors do rely heavily on their defense, and they showed it in that second half. So in that second half, the Spurs only finished with 4 assists after Kawhi. After Kawhi went out, the Spurs only finished with 4 assists. San Antonio had 19 turnovers, which obviously turned into 31 points for Golden State. Some of those turnovers really came when Kawhi left the game as well. San Antonio here turned over the ball 9 times after he left for 17 points. And the Spurs' bench scored 39 points, while the Warriors were held 13 points from the bench. But again, the Warriors have 4 All-Stars in their starting lineup, so they don't rely a total ton on their bench scoring. Some guys that were big for the Spurs, especially I think you have to wonder about for Game 2 now, his responsibility is DeJounte Murray. Had a really good game with 6 points on 5 shots in that second after Kawhi Leonard left the game. Manu Ginobili, 39 years old, he was still able to create for his team. Finishes with 8 points on 6 shots after Kawhi Leonard was injured in the game. Manu actually finished with 4 points in the fourth quarter for San Antonio as well. So I think that Murray, you're going to see his workload increase a little bit more, especially if Kawhi is not able to go in Game 2, and they really need his shot creativity, the way he can kind of just easily, there was a possession where he just kind of broke off a pick and roll. He just kind of broke the Warriors defense down and got right into the lane and had an open look for his teammates. That's something that Murray's able to do. Looking at the Spurs' scoring from the 6-minute increments chart, they did a really good job, as I mentioned, when they first opened up that 25 lead, of continuing offensively to score at a very efficient rate, putting up 14, 16 points in some of those 6-minute stretches. They played a very good defense in the first and second quarter for those first 18 minutes, holding Golden State to 10 points in the first 6 minutes, 6 points in the second 6 minutes, and then 9 points in the last 6 minutes. But of course, in that second half after Kawhi went out, the Warriors just went on that crazy scoring run where they actually put up a 16-0 run by themselves. And then also the Spurs had trouble stopping them for the remainder of the game. The Spurs did hit one of their scoring lows to start this fourth quarter where they only had 6 points. And again, that's where you really needed Aldridge to step up, or you need somebody like Simmons or a guy like Murray or Patty Mills to jump in as well to help ease that burden of the Spurs going to those scoring droughts. Coach Pop mentioned how they kind of fell into the mud there once Kawhi went out of the game. Defensively, the Spurs held the Warriors to 48% from the floor. Those numbers as well go skyrocket once Kawhi left the game. When he left, they shot up to 58% field goal from the floor once Kawhi was out of the game. The Warriors made 11 of 33s, 37%. Spurs did a pretty good job of contesting those, but they also got some open ones, the Warriors, that just didn't go in. A guy like Klay Thompson had some open looks that they just didn't go in there. But then some credit has to be given to the Spurs' defense. The Warriors shot 24 of 33 from the free throw line in the game. Here's one of the big areas, the boards. Against the Rockets, the Spurs won the majority of those battles on the boards. However, against the Warriors in Game 1 already, Golden State out-rebounded the Spurs by 6 overall. However, once Kawhi left the game, the Spurs got out-rebounded 24-13. The Warriors grabbed 17 offensive rebounds. A big part of that is them missing a lot of three-pointers, 19 three-pointers, so those rebounds go longer. And since the Spurs were usually only playing one big, it was harder for their wings to get in their guards to rebound at such an efficient rate without Kawhi's length in there. So after Kawhi was out of the game, the Spurs only got 9 off. I mean, the Warriors actually got 9 more offensive rebounds once Kawhi left the game with his injury. The Spurs had a tough time stopping the Warriors in transition. That was one of their goals, is to try to keep Golden State from getting fast break buckets. The Warriors got 32 points in transition. 20 of those points in transition came out after Kawhi's injury. And then, of course, the pace was a little bit faster than the Spurs would want to play. We had 99.42 possessions per 48 minutes. In the first half of the game, when the Spurs were really controlling the game, they were really doing a really good job of controlling tempo, running motion sets, waiting to get Aldridge in the post or get Kawhi into the pick and roll a little bit later in the shot clock. That way Golden State couldn't just shoot a shot and go down on the other side. That was something they did very well. Won the game in the third quarter when the Spurs started turning over the ball after Kawhi left. The tempo increased for Golden State. The Spurs started taking some quicker shots, and they just couldn't get any efficient looks for themselves. Kevin Durant finishes with 34 points on 21 shots. Steph Curry, 40 points on 26 shots. And he made 7 3-pointers on the night. Klay Thompson had a rough shooting night, 6 points on 11 shots. And then Draymond Green finishes with 9 points on 6 shots. He grabs 7 rebounds and 7 assists. The two guys I do want to talk about, the two All-Stars for Golden State, were Durant and Curry. After Kawhi left the game, they both got going. Curry and Durant combined for 35 points from the 8-minute mark, the 7:50 mark of the third quarter to the end of the game. They basically outscored San Antonio by themselves, just the two of them. Durant, without Kawhi, Durant had Danny Green on him. He had Manu a few times, and DeJounte Murray. He basically could score on them whenever he needed to. He didn't have too many tough shots against them. Steph Curry did a really good job of escaping the pressure from the Spurs' switches on off-ball screens, and he got himself a lot of good looks, whether it was off the pick and roll or off the ball, coming off screens. So that was something where we're just missing Kawhi, his length, his ability to keep the tempo decreased by giving the Spurs points. The offense allowed Curry and Durant to get loose on the other side of the ball, and the Spurs' defense really had trouble containing them. Now, game 2 will be Tuesday, May 16th at Oracle Arena, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time for the Texas folks. Again, the biggest adjustment is what's going to be the status of Kawhi. Is the MRI going to reveal he's definitely out for the second game? How long is he out? Can he play? What's his level of play? Should he get there? If he doesn't go, the obvious strategy would be to get LaMarcus Aldridge started early again and try to keep him consistent, get him some better looks in the blow post, maybe more high-low action, just like they did against the Rockets when Kawhi was out in Game 6. They got to try to get Simmons going as well, more off the pick and roll, get him a little bit more responsibility. And the interesting question becomes the starting point guard role. Patty Mills didn't have a good night, finishes with just 5 points. When Kawhi left the game, he only had 3 points. He shot 0 3 from the floor and no assists. So they obviously need something from Patty. Something you saw was a light for San Antonio was Murray, who was able to break down the Warriors' defense in several plays. So you have to wonder, do they start Murray or do they bring him in a little bit early and give him more responsibility, saying, hey, you really need to open up the offense for San Antonio should Kawhi not play? That's an adjustment I think the Spurs are definitely going to try to look for. And then also guys like Manu had a really good game, 13 points. Age 39 really kept the Spurs in it. He actually scored 4 points for them in that fourth quarter, and so they, as much as it's hard for him to do it at age 39, they still need another performance like that from Manu. And then if should Danny Green get open, they need his help as well to keep the offense flowing from his outside shots. So for Project Spurs, I am Paul Garcia.